My name is Amy Horn, and I'm going to take you through a lot of ins and outs when it comes to the Lightroom Classic Catalog. So let's go ahead and get started. So here's my catalog. And first thing to recognize is a catalog is a database. So it is keeping track of where your images are. It doesn't actually house the images themselves. So that means images can be on a different location. As I look at my catalog up here, top left-hand corner, I can actually see what the catalog is called. I generally just use one catalog with one exception, which I'll explain in just a moment. So within that catalog, I have 174,000 images that Lightroom is keeping track of, including any changes I've made. When I come down on the left panel to folders and expand that, I can see where all my images are. So I keep my images on an external hard drive. A couple of reasons for that. Sometimes Lightroom can start running slow because it's all about memory. And so a couple things you can do if your Lightroom is running slow. First, a lot of the file management things that I'm going to address today, that is removing files you don't need. So backups, extra catalogs, things like that take space on your hard drive, and that will take up memory. That will make almost any software run a little slower. Another great recommendation, if your software runs slower, is to use the optimize catalog feature that Lightroom has built in. And I highly recommend this. It can really clean things up. It works on the back end, and it just makes things work more efficiently. Now, if you have ever had a catalog, you try to open it and it says it's corrupt, Lightroom or Adobe will actually offer to fix it for you within that same dialog box. And I recommend doing that because, they kind of know what might have gone wrong. And so that has been a positive feature that pops up if you have a corrupt catalog. If I've had a corrupt catalog, it was so long ago and it was only one time. So it's not something I see frequently, but I have heard clients talk about that before. All right, so now that we talked a little bit about efficiency, let's also talk about the photos themselves. So as I mentioned, I use an external hard drive because I don't want all of those images to bog down my home computer. So I use an external hard drive. And once I have imported images into Lightroom, if I need to move them to a different folder, a different year, do something different, I need to do that within Lightroom. Otherwise, Lightroom will get mad at you. What I mean by mad is it will show up with exclamation points. And if you hover over, it says photo is missing. So that's something to be careful about. In this case, it's images I moved. They're really old images, but I moved them outside of Lightroom. And I can find them. If I click on the exclamation point, it'll tell me to go find it. And if I know where they currently are, if I tap the locate button, then I can direct the computer to find it, go to that folder, click on the image, and everything will be connected again. That takes a little time, and these are not highly important images to do that with, so I haven't. But there's also some I can sort. So again, Lightroom knows about these images, but maybe they belong elsewhere. So these first couple I know were shot in Tucson in March 06. So again, I'm in Lightroom, I'm going to move it, and it has taken it from the one folder, and now I have 6 images in this folder. So it has moved it on the hard drive. I can do the same with this one. And if I do the same with this one here, it's going to tell me it already exists. And that's why I have it selected as a reject, because I realize it's a duplicate image. So once I delete my images at some point, select all my rejects, and empty the recycle bin, then I'll have these removed from Lightroom as well as off the hard drive. Okay, so that's just a quick little thing about when it comes to the images and recognizing that they are in a different location than your catalog in most cases. So the catalog, again, Horn Catalog version 13-3, but where is it on your computer? So the easiest way to find out is to use the Edit dropdown, Catalog Settings, General tab. And right here, it tells you the location of your catalog. So when I tap Show, it will actually open a file. And I determined where I wanted it to be saved, and so I chose the desktop for the catalog. If you just open the software, it's probably going to be in a different location because it's wherever Adobe defaults it to. If you ever want to move a catalog, let me be cautious right now, and we'll talk about all the files you would need to move along with it. So here's my Lightroom catalog inside this folder. I'm going to open the folder, and I see a ton of stuff here. So more than just a catalog. So let's break it all down for you. So first off, I have a folder called Backups. Whenever I exit Lightroom, I have Lightroom prompt me saying, do I want to back up? I don't back up every day, as you can see, because these are date oriented. But I do back up every time I've downloaded a bunch of new images, or I've done some major processing, or it's just been 2 weeks. I will do backups. Inside the backup folder is a zipped file, which is a catalog and all the instructions to all your photos and any supporting documents. So if you're going to move a catalog, you'll want to either use it from a backup or make sure you gather all those supporting files. So if I go back to my backups folder, again, I have 6 backups here. So in October, that was really current. And then in November, this was more current, more current, more current. So I don't need these past catalogs, these past backups, because it's old information. If I ever had to use a backup to recover my catalog, I'm not going to use these old ones. I'm going to use these. More than likely the most recent, but I like to keep a second one just as an extra precaution. When I hover over each of these folders, they're each about 1 gig in size. So this is, once I delete, I'm going to get rid of 4 gigabytes of memory that's being used on my computer. So I'm going to hit the delete key to get rid of those. And they have gone to my recycle bin on the computer. If you have your recycle bin where it empties automatically, it doesn't store things, then you might want to change that setting or think about it. I like to put it in the recycle bin, and then after a couple of days, I make sure everything is still working fine. Then I'll empty my recycle bin, which then clears the files off my computer. So for right now, I've just reduced 4 gigabytes of file space. Let's go back to the Lightroom folder and talk catalogs. So there's a whole lot of information here. So let's start off with the blue icons. These are the actual catalogs. So according to this, I have 4 catalogs. But I just told you I only use one. So the one I really use is Horn Catalog version 13-3. And you can see that, like I pointed out at the start, at the very top left-hand corner. Graduations is a separate catalog from some photo shoots I did years ago. I don't shoot graduations anymore, but I don't want to get rid of the files. And I don't want the photos to be mixed in with my personal stuff. So I have pulled all those images out and put them into a separate catalog. So this catalog and the corresponding folders all go together. I'm just going to let that sit. I'm not going to do anything with it today because if I need it, I have it, but I don't use it. But I have these other 3. So we identified version 13-3 is current, but these other 2 are not. And how I can tell they're not is if I look at the date modified. So under your view dropdown, you can choose details, and then you can see date modified. So these have not been used or opened for over 6 months. And if I look at the files, they're pretty large files. So I don't want these. I don't need them. I'm not using them. When Lightroom gives you an update, it will often rename your catalog and it will add some of these additional numbers, including versions to it. For me, that's not what I need. And so then at one point I renamed my catalog to Horn Catalog. So it made more sense to me versus all these additional digits. So since I know I'm using Horn Catalog, I'm going to leave all those files alone. But anything to do with Lightroom Catalog 2-2-2, I can get rid of. Now, when it comes to all of these files, you'll notice some are, well, like ones that are not highlighted right now. The Horn Catalog version 13-3, LRC lock. Several of these are locked files, and they actually only appear when Lightroom is open. So if I close Lightroom, these 3 are going to go away. So because I don't have these catalogs open, I have less corresponding files. But again, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Now, some of you might think, delete? Wow, that's a big big task. So maybe you don't want to delete. Maybe you want to instead use a folder like old Lightroom catalogs and move it all into that folder until you're sure. And I support that 100%. As long as you come back a few days later, once everything's working well, and then delete. Because again, this is a lot of memory. I'm going to go ahead and hit delete. I feel comfortable deleting these files. And notice each of these are over 2.5 gigs. So now I've saved 5 gigs of memory. On my computer once it's all done. And you noticed in the backups, I did perform a backup before I recorded this. So before I do any file management like this, I will always make a backup. So that way I have the most current information saved. Okay, so now I have my main catalog and I have the supporting files. I've cleaned up a lot of space. I do have this folder, old Lightroom catalogs. And again, sometimes when Lightroom has an update and things like that too, it will create a zipped file. So this is pretty old as well. This is from October. It hasn't been open since. It's like a pretty old backup in that case. So I'm going to delete that folder as well. Again, okay, so that one thing I want to mention is when it comes to your file management, I know I mentioned your catalog is generally on the hard drive, and I recommend your photos being on an external drive. So you have an H drive here. I also have an identical drive plugged into this computer, so that way I have 2 copies at home of my photos. And then I also use an online service. I use Backblaze, but there's many out there. Find one that's good for you, or find some method to have a backup that's not in your house. If there's a fire or flood, I've lost everything if I only have what's in my house. So like I said, I have all my images in this backup folder, but I also, look down here, I also keep backups of my catalog on the external hard drive, because maybe my computer dies. If that's where my backup is, I'm in trouble. So I make sure I copy over one of those folders here and there, and you can see I've got older versions of them. I'll delete that as well. So I don't need that on my external hard drive. I have 2 more recent versions. So I do always make sure I have backups on an external hard drive, catalog backups, as well as on the main computer. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I would go ahead and close this out. And just as I mentioned under catalog settings, this is where you can change how often Lightroom backs up. And of course, you can always choose to skip the backup. I'm going to go ahead and exit right now to reopen Lightroom to make sure it is working properly. Now that I've reopened Lightroom, everything works great. So I am inclined to just empty my recycle bin. However, I understand if you may want to give it another day or two. I do this frequently, so I'm happy to just go ahead and empty that recycle bin. So that's some general things to keep in mind when it comes to catalogs, removing extra backups. Remember, all of those extra files you have on your computer can slow your computer down and eventually slow down how Lightroom optimizes or how Lightroom works. So things very important to consider. Now, a couple other issues people might have when it comes to their catalog is if they had a corrupt catalog and they have to totally replace their catalog. So if you're going to replace your catalog, you would want to start with a backup. So I would go ahead into my backups folder and just find that most recent backup, and I would copy it to where my regular catalog was. Put it there, unzip it, put it there, open it, and now I have a new catalog. If the photos have exclamation points, it means that it can't find them, and all you have to do is find one of those images and direct it to your external hard drive, and then everything will be found. And so, and then the next step I would do if I was using the backup as my new catalog, I would go ahead and rename this new catalog. I don't want to risk it getting confused with a backup and me accidentally deleting it some other time. So under File, you can just choose rename catalog. Other things that sometimes happen is people get a new computer and they have to move their catalog. So in that case, to move your catalog, you'd want to go back to your original Lightroom catalog. So I would need to close Lightroom first. That would collapse these bottom 3 files. And then I would grab the catalog and the additional files, possibly put them in a folder, but then on an external drive to transfer it to the new computer. Again, I might need to show that new computer how to find my images, but as long as I have that external drive connected, then everything will be fine. So another feature that people don't realize when it comes to catalogs is, for instance, I travel a lot. So I have my home desktop, that's where everything is, but when I travel, I use a laptop. So how do I get my laptop photos into my home catalog? So first off, on the laptop, I will set up a brand new catalog. Call it whatever my photo shoot might be. Looking at the pictures on the screen, it could have something to do with ice. So I'll make a new catalog, call it ice. When I'm done sorting and viewing and doing everything I want with my photos, all of the photos that I want to transfer to my home computer are going to go into a collection. So I have made a collection up here called Demo 2. And I've just picked a couple top photos for this year so far. And if these are all the ones that I want to transfer to my home computer, put them all in a collection. If you haven't made a collection, it's just simple. Just hit the plus and create collection. Once they're all in that collection, then I right-click on the collection name and choose Export this collection as a catalog. So that is going to create an external catalog. And then you can transfer it with a flash drive to another computer, to, in this case, my home computer. Once I get it on my home computer, now I have 2 catalogs again, my main one and this new one I just brought over. So you'd want to combine them. File, import from another catalog. Grab it, choose, and then Lightroom will analyze the photos and what to do and give you recommendations of where to save it. Because this originated from this catalog, I'm going to hit cancel. But if you'd like more detailed information on how to do this, I do have a separate YouTube video for traveling like that and using 2 computers. Otherwise, once you get it in, it's combined with everything else. You can delete that transported catalog as you like, and now you have everything in one catalog again. So I hope this has cleared up any confusion you might have on Lightroom and catalogs and backups and all of that good stuff. If you have any further questions, you can subscribe, follow, or contact me here. Thank you very much.